about a model. The, Today, what we would like to do is, first of all, speak a bit about Gen AI, the applicability, etc. I think that's the first 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. The dialogue will be based on that. And Lwanga and Tamrat will jump in and give ideas. Tamrat has just the content from a slide perspective to show talking points, right? But both of them will give um, scenarios, use cases based on what we see in the world of our customers using right now, right? And because we want this to now be very foundational in your thinking of where these things can be applied. So I would ask if you can ask questions. I know Tamrat asked yesterday for a lot for you guys to keep asking questions throughout the session. And after that, we will resume the labs from yesterday, where we're going to see how to finish building the models and uploading the data, right? So that you have a little more practical experience. Um, Questions towards feedback before I hand over to Tamrat and team? We good to go? Well,
Yeah,
if
we're good
that
to go.
case,
Exactly.
all right. So good, have a good session, and I'm handing you over to Tamrat and Lwanga.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time today as well to go on to session 2 or day 2 of our activities. So as Rishi said, we're just going to have a short presentation at the beginning. I don't know, I mean, I presented myself yesterday. Anybody here today that was not here yesterday? Especially that would be very relevant, especially when we go into the lab. But just keep that in mind, maybe Sabrina or others, because we're just going to continue the lab from where we left off. If new people join, that's okay. They can still follow. The lab access is still available, so they can still use the lab guide and do it is essentially on their own from this point on. Okay. Lwanga, I know you were not here yesterday. Maybe do you want to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, I could, excuse me. Yeah, I could do that again. So, morning, everyone. Lwanga, Phillip. I've been with AWS a couple of years now. Prior to that, I was in the financial services industry the past 20 years and digital advertising as well. I am from Trinidad, so happy to be here and a part of this. Apologies I wasn't able to make it yesterday, but looking forward to working with the team and everyone going forward.
Thanks, Lwanga. All right. So as is the was the case yesterday, because we're doing this virtual, I can't see you. And my apologies. Actually, my camera wouldn't work. I would have to restart Teams. So I didn't turn on my camera. But the agenda for this very short session is going to be on just Gen AI. We're going to talk about what it is, just to give a bit of a context and background, some of the use cases. We know we talked shortly about that yesterday, and then we're going to focus more on a particular service that we have, API-based service that we have called Amazon Bedrock, that we can talk a little bit more about today. Okay. Obviously, this being a 20-minute session, we're just going to gloss over a lot of things. So just keep that in mind and think of it as this is a starting point of other things that we're going to do. We're going to do a lot more on generative AI with you in the coming weeks and months. Okay. First, as we discussed yesterday, I'm sure all of you have heard, maybe have used generative AI yourselves. This has really taken the world by storm and took the imagination of a lot of people and seen some of the output that generative AI has been able to achieve in a short amount of time, and just over a year and a half, a little more than that actually. But essentially, why we are here now at this point, at the tipping point of generative AI, is for three different reasons. Three main reasons. There are many, right? First one is generative AI is still based on data. So, and we're generating data at a very, very high rate. So that all that data being available, not just generated, but being available is one of the key aspects. The second thing is generative AI also requires, especially in terms of building the large language models and other models that are being built, it requires quite a bit of compute capacity. You probably have heard of GPUs being one of the key building blocks from a hardware perspective that enables generative AI. That's not the only thing, but many other things that come into play as well. But compute capacity is a very important ingredient. And so when you have all that happening at the same time, well, a lot of people were able to, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, including Amazon, has been able to take that capacity and build generative AI solutions, right? So if we talk about just answering the question of what is generative AI, as the name implies, it's a artificial intelligence that generates new content, right? So the primary characteristic, let's say, of generative AI is that it's able to create new content and ideas. So it could be, text-based, it could be images, it could be videos, etc., and music. And I'm sure you've all have seen some type of output from Gen AI. It can be used, and this is one big application of it, is to augment the human creativity and the innovation that it can bring to what we use on a daily basis. Okay, so be it on as a student, right, as you're learning, could have an assistant in that. So doing some research, finding resources, etc. So that could be it. But this is applicable across many industries and across many job roles as well. Okay. And really the foundation of it is large language models. And those are, there are quite a few of them, but those are pre-trained on a vast corpora of data that is organized, that is trained, that is evaluated, that is, you know, how do you say, iteratively trained as well and improved upon, so that again we have a model that can be used across many use cases. Okay, so if we go to look at the history of machine learning and AI in particular, the initial use cases, this is like 20 years ago or something like that, is a very simple process where you have a simple set of input and then you have a simple set of outputs, right? So it's just a question of, hey, doing some simple classification, some, very basic prediction type of approach, right? And this is not that much away from statistical models that have existed for much longer, right? Then came deep learning. With deep learning, you could have more complex or complicated inputs, not just text, but also images, videos, and things like that. And then again, be able to map it to a simple set of outputs that exist there, right? But then came generative AI with the foundation models that we'll cover a little bit later on. And in this particular case, the amount, there's a massive amount of complex data on the input side, and then we create different, the models will be able to interpret that and create also complex outputs, right? And we'll see that there are different levels of that in the subsequent slides. By the way, Lwanga, at any point, please interrupt me if you want to chime in and add anything to the conversation.
Yep, will do.
All right. All right. So when we talk about foundation models, the traditional model that has existed for a while is shown here on the left-hand side. So in this particular case, you have different models for different use cases. So if you want to do text generation, you create a customized a model for that. If you want to do summarization, you do Q&A, chatbot, etc. So each one of these has its set of inputs. Most of the time, they're labeled data, meaning we know what type of data it is. Okay, we trained on that data. Of course, generate the model and improve on the model, deploy the model in production, and then have these types of tasks available to the end users. With foundation models, the approach is different. You see that now we have a set of unlabeled data that is coming in, and then we feed that directly into the foundation model, right? A single foundation model, right? So it's not something that is specialized just for text generation or Q&A, etc. It can do any and all of those. Okay. So depending on what instructions you give it, it will do the task that you want it to do. Okay, so that's again another foundational or big difference between each one of them. Okay, so the potential of Gen AI is incredibly exciting with a very high impact on on businesses, on economies, on countries, etc. Right? So you can create new experiences, engage customers, for instance, in a very interactive way. So something that you'd see in a chatbot type of solution, for instance. You can highly improve productivity, right? So it could be in almost any industry, any business. Generative AI can be seen as a way of making sure that employees are more productive. Then you can also say, hey, I have a set of data. Again, as we mentioned, it's unlabeled. Unlabeled means it's not sorted. It's not, you don't know exactly how to, you haven't spent time to actually classify that data initially, right? But you can take that data, a vast amount of data, and feed it to the foundation model and ask it to to extract insights from that, right? So it's a very important use case for that. And then the last one is the creativity part, right? So I'm sure you've all seen some form of images, videos, and other things that were generated by generative AI. They're highly popular on social media, right? So sure you've seen some of those. So, but that's a very, again, attractive use of generative AI that we've seen. Yeah. So some of the use cases, we covered a bit of that yesterday, right? So in terms of generation of new content, right? So you can tell it, okay, I want to write an email to this person. It's in this type of tone that I want you to write the email, and we'll go ahead and generate that. You can do Q&A based on knowledge that the foundation model has, or as we'll see, you can feed it or point it to additional data that it may not have had in the past, and still be able to use the foundation model to answer your questions. Summarization, you have a book you have to read as university students, right? So if you want to get a summary of that, you can get that done. Don't encourage you to do that. It's always good to read the books as well. Translating between different languages, correcting, etc. So again, many use cases. The translation part is important as well, because English is not the only supported language. Depending on the model, you'll see many different languages being supported, right? So those are the use cases. Remember, we saw the slide yesterday in terms of different industries that are using generative AI. So look, these are some of the applicability or particular specific use cases that are being used by some of these industries, right? So if you can think of in the healthcare and life sciences side in terms of creating or designing new drugs, personalizing medicine based on the patient's history, right? Medical history, for instance. Improving medical imaging, that's a big one, right? So if you train the foundation model on a lot of data related to X-ray images, for instance, right? And then let it analyze new X-rays that you take and give you its diagnosis, right? Give you a diagnosis. This is a very highly promising and very positive use of Gen AI as well. Just too many here to go through each one of them. We talked about next best action yesterday, right? In terms of credit scoring as well. You have so many parameters, features, we call them in machine learning, right? That you can use to really create a profile of particular client of a bank, for instance. Now you could use a lot of that within foundation models to provide that type of credit scoring. Okay. As we talked a little bit about that yesterday in terms of some of the considerations when you talk about generative AI. It's very important that we have the ability to explain what features, how a model is coming up to a particular answer or a particular solution to you, so that a human can also understand as to what the steps taken to come up to the final answer, right? So that again, there is full understanding and full transparency of the models, so that it doesn't look like just a black box that you feed it inputs and then you get an output and you may not know exactly how this is happening. Hallucination, we didn't talk about that before. Just to define it, is when you have a model and you ask it to do something, it will create content that sounds credible, right? So let's say, it's maybe a bad example, but let's just say, hey, if you ask it, tell me why Trinidad is bigger than the US in surface area, for something like that. It may give you an answer, right? That agrees with the false question that you ask it. So again, this is something that models are working on to make sure that there is no hallucination. And then there's also, as we talked about responsible AI yesterday, we don't generate content that is not appropriate, right? So those types of guardrails are being put in place for these models, right? Then, again, the bias part that we talked about. Actually, we didn't talk about that specifically yesterday, but it is just the area where you can, based on how you train, how the foundation model is trained, can have some biases built in, right? So we want to make sure that those are eliminated and the model can be as unbiased as possible, right? So that relates directly to the data set, right? Is the data set as diverse as it could be? So if, for instance, if you're gonna take a worldwide view of population or something like that, but your data set is only population from Europe only, well, that's not gonna be a very good model to use globally, right? So understanding the relationship between data and the models is important. Of course, the last point is about staleness. Data evolves, so we want to make sure that our models evolve or the data is updated so that it can take into consideration new knowledge, new data that is important
Tamrat, sorry,
for the models.
question, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to interject here. So
No.
for the students, right? Uh, um, I know Tamrat talks a lot about data and when we mention in data, right? But most of these systems, and this is probably, and Lwanga probably correct me if I'm wrong as well, right? Most of the times when you're building this, you need good data, right? So, and you would see that in any solution like this, you are as good as, um, or the results that come out depends highly on the quality of the data. And probably Lwanga and Tamar can explain what I mean by quality. Because in a lot of IT terms, we talk about data quality, but quality is often ignored. And this is something you will have to will be a topic of discussion wherever you go to work.
Yeah, I
Right.
could actually, Tamara, do you have more slides? Because I
I
could go ahead.
No,
Go
good,
ahead.
good, good. I only have 3 or 4 more slides. That's it.
No, I just want to bring some examples that might bring together all these topics that you're talking about for some
Sure.
real world use cases. So I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
do that after. So you go ahead. You finish this. I don't want to interrupt.
Okay, okay, no problem. Yeah. So yeah, I don't have, again, I tried to trim things down so that we don't have too much content for this short session. But definitely, as Rishi said, the quality of the data is very important. The example that I gave in terms of population of Europe versus the world is maybe a very uh, simple example of that. But it's, again, data becomes extremely important when it comes to generative AI. So, but let's switch gears and let's talk about Amazon Bedrock. But before we do that, any other questions as to what we've covered so far?
No,
No?
I'm good so far.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so we're going to talk more about Amazon Bedrock here because it's Amazon Bedrock is a managed service that we offer at AWS that gives you the ability to choose between uh, um, quite a few dozen foundational models from leading AI companies and research firms, etc., that you can use using a single API, right? So no matter which model you use, the APIs don't change. You just say, okay, I want this model, and you can use the same exact API across the board, right? So when generative AI became very popular again in the last couple of years, Amazon embarked on that journey as well by saying, okay, one of the first things that we want to make sure we give to our customers, which is something we've always done, is choice, right? So we're not going to tell you, okay, this is one model, it works for everybody, and off you go. Instead, what we thought is we leverage, again, the compute capacity that we have. We leverage a set of the approach that we've done with many of our services, which is to make it a managed service, which means that you don't have to go and provision any type of resources. You just, again, through an API, be able to consume that service, right? And with Amazon Bedrock, you have the additional capabilities here that are listed in terms of, hey, if you have a model, you select a model, and then you can customize that model. The retrieval augmented generation is a very interesting use case, actually. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But essentially, what that is, and you can it's all in the name actually. So there's the retrieval part. This is where you're gonna retrieve content from your own data set, okay? Meaning that you can have any of the models that are existing today that have been trained on open data that is available on the internet, but you may have proprietary data. Say, let's say, was it Banner you called the service? You have at UE, right? And that may have confidential information that is should only be kept within UE. You could use data from there with your foundation model, and essentially when you ask a question, we'll go and look for that information from your own repository of data, okay, and then use the output of that to augment the answers that we get from that search, to augment and generate new content based on that data, right? So think of it as, let's say you have some internal information that is only for UE students, let's say, okay? So you can say, I'm going to point it to that and say, okay, if someone asks questions, go ahead and do a search in that internal site. Once you get the answers to that, it's not just like a Google search where you get a bunch of links and it may just tell you, okay, maybe the question was, okay, what do I need to get in terms of grades in the next 2 semesters to maintain a 3.5 GPA? I'm making it up, right? You can go get that information and say, okay, now we know we have 4 courses per term or whatever. So if you score this and that, and we'll give you the answer. So it's not just going to be like, okay, how is it going to get, it's not just going to go and say, hey, here is your, your current GPA or something like that. But instead, we'll also do some of the additional work to generate a more consumable answer. Okay. Agents are an extension of that as well, where you also can do a multi-step approach, right? So think of it as a common use case or example is you want to take a trip, okay, to Disneyland, let's say. Okay, you say, I'm going to Disneyland from this date to this date. What should I do? It will tell you what some of the things that are recommended, but you can also say, okay, go ahead and do some booking for me for the hotel, for this ride, for this coffee shop, whatever the case may be, and it will do that for you. So it's a multi-step, highly interactive type of approach that you can do. And at the foundation of all this is security, privacy, and safety. Okay, so Bedrock, like all AWS services, will always take security as the highest priority. Privacy is very important as well. Your data remains yours. We're not going to take your data and use it to retrain or improve the models. And then from a safety perspective, we have guardrails that are put in place to improve the safety of the Bedrock solution. Okay, so talked about choice already. It's highly it's customizable as well. You can do some. We're not going to get too much into that, but you can do some what we call fine tuning to customize the model for specific use cases. We'll talk a little bit about that maybe later on. It's fully integrated with other AWS services and third-party solutions as well. Then security and governance, as we mentioned, is very important, and is there as well. Okay, so in terms of the models that we have, you see we have 7 companies at the top. Yes, 7, right? Including Amazon. So we have our own models, what we call first-party models, and then we have third-party models. Some AI 21 Labs, Anthropic, Cohere, Meta, Mistral, and Stability AI, right? So depending on what you want to use, and here are listed some of the most common use cases, right, that you can use some of these models for, you can do that as well. Okay, so now you can say, okay, which one should I pick, right? So you within Bedrock you can do a model evaluation as well, where you can say, hey, I want to do this particular task, and I'm thinking of using these two models. It will compare between the two and tell you which one would be more appropriate for that particular use case, right? So we'll have that type of capability as well. Good thing to note here, Anthropic and Meta in particular now with Llama 3.1 are the highest performing models out there in the world, right? So again, we offer that to you, we offer that to our customers so that they can pick whichever one they want. So Mistral, for instance, an open source model. Some are, again, commercial models. So depending on the use cases, you can pick whichever one makes the most sense to you. Okay. Now, when we talk about customizing FMs or foundation models, right? The most common or starting point for using these models is with prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is whatever, excuse me, you're going to do to interact with the model, right? So you can say, give me the list of the top 10, students in this particular class, just to take a UE example, for instance, right? But the way you write your prompts, especially for more complex type of tasks, is very important. So prompt engineering is that aspect of it where you can give instructions to the model and maybe even give it examples, right? So you can do one shot or multi-shot the prompts where you can say, okay, if you get this type of answer, for instance, for sentiment analysis, this means this is good, or this means this is bad, etc. And then after that, you give it your data, and it will do the classification for you based on the examples that you've given it. Okay. The second one is what I mentioned a little bit earlier on, retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. So this is where you complement the model with data that is internal to your organization. And in that particular case, again, as I mentioned, we're going to go get, do a search on that data. There's a vector database, etc., that comes into play. I'm not going to complicate it here. Think of it as we're going to get answers from your data, and then we're going to generate an answer that is in natural language based on the answers that we've gotten from your data. Fine-tuning is a bit more advanced, where you can say, okay, I have this particular type of data. I'm going to label it this way, and then I'm going to tune the model to support that type of use cases, right? And then last one is continued pre-training. There's another one that is not listed here, but you can also build your own large language models. Those are typically reserved to a very few set of companies, use cases, etc., because it requires a vast amount of data, people, resources, etc. So that's not listed here, right? So it's I didn't include that here. Just to give you an example, with one of the highest performing models that exist in the world, actually, in the world of generative AI, is from Anthropic. The company name is Anthropic. You may have heard of it, and Claude is the model. And the latest one is Claude 3.5. And they have, excuse me, yeah, they have different tiers of models, right? So if you compare these in terms of what that type of use cases they have, the context size, think of it as what the model can understand in one shot. So think of it as if it's, if it's text, let's say 100 pages of text, it's going to be that it's going to be able to generate in one shot, right? So it's important that the larger the context window is, the more data it can generate, and the more data it can understand on input as well. Okay, all of these support vision, and then you can see the cost for input and output text, right, based on the tokens. Tokens are, think of it as, just on average, it's about 4 characters in the English language. So it's not quite a word on average. But that's how we calculate the size in generative AI. So tokens are important. So the thing is, like anything else, when you make a decision, you can say, okay, I'm going to be optimized for cost. I'm going to optimize for context. I'm going to optimize for this, for that, whatever the case may be. And then that's where choice becomes important, right? And say, okay, I prefer to do this because I'm willing to trade off this for that, right? So in that particular case, you can say, I'm going to pick this particular model versus that other model to go forward with. Okay. And I think that's all I have. Again, try to cover as much as possible in a short amount of time. And I know I went a little bit ahead, but Lwanga, please go ahead. And do you want to share a screen as well, or?
No, I think in the interest
Okay.
of time, I could just speak through some of the examples, and I'll
Yeah.
put some of them in the chat.
Fantastic.
So thanks, Tamrat, for a great overview. To make some of this more relatable and to sort of pull those ideas together. So we are all familiar with what you see on social media in terms of what is being put out there, the uses of generative AI. But if I am a business spending millions of dollars on a product, I want this relatable to me. So let me give you 3 quick examples. So British Petroleum, BP, and these are actual examples. This is public information that they've put out for the rest of the audience in terms of how they've used AWS services. So British Petroleum today does the data gathering aspect, which Tamrat spoke about. So they have information across all their wells. And what they do is they then gather that information and they query the service. So they query and say, for instance, how much production am I getting from this well versus this other well? And what that then does, it takes that information. So that's the prompt engineering aspect that Tamrat was referring to. You have to fine tune it, but it then goes and it generates SQL code. It goes in, it queries the database of their production wells, and it brings back that information to the user. So what's the benefit and savings there? Well, before, if you think about it, I have to go with the rest of my data team, pull all that information together from all these different sources, figure out the type of SQL query I'm going to write, and then package that information back to a user. So the way BP is using it now, I just sit here and I query and I say, tell me about X well versus Y well, and then I get back data and the visualization. So that's one example. Financial services. So think of this is what NASDAQ does today, but you could apply it to, let's say, Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. So stock exchanges want to manage things like insider trading, where you get a head start on trading on a certain company because you have inside information. So they call this under market surveillance. So again, I'm collecting data about all these companies in terms of their regulatory filings, their P&L reports, etc. I pull all that information together. Based on that, I can analyze and see, okay, this stock was hardly moving, and all of a sudden, this person invested a ton of money in this stock right before they made this announcement that showed it was tanking or that it was going to increase substantially. So again, that's another example where I query and I say, show me activity, show me fraud activity or insider trading activity that might come about from users. So that's another example of Gen AI there. Last example I'd give in the interest of time, if you think about from a media and entertainment landscape, so think about sports reporters. So if I am doing CPL, 2020. I don't necessarily have all the information. So when somebody comes up to bat, right, what you can do now is generate all that information based on that player. So you can get his recent stats. You could get information about, how they've performed in the last CPL. You could get information going as far back as possible, and you can have all that generated on the fly. So me as a sports announcer, I am telling you what is happening on the screen in terms of, this player is coming up to bat, but I have this addendum information on the side that I can look to and say, well, such and such has been playing for 10 years now, has an average of such and such, so all that information comes up to me. Whereas before, again, you have an analytics team doing this information statically and handing you a file that you then have to refer to. But now you get the information. It's real time. It's pulling data from everywhere. It's pulling data from that player's social media, from everywhere, so you could give more insightful information to your audience. So hopefully it makes it more relatable. There's some other examples as well, but like I said, in the interest of time, I could put some of them in the chat.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you, Lwanga. Thanks for, yeah, I think that's very, very important, as you mentioned, to make it more real and relatable as well. And I'm glad you took some more of the local examples as well. Yeah, perfect. So let me share my screen now. Let me see, I think it's this one. Yeah. Let me see if, please tell me if you see my screen.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And in the chat, I put back the link that we used yesterday to connect to the labs. So once you have that link, you click on it. I'm just going to click on it here. So it's going to open here. So because you may have been logged out, right? So you may have to log back in. So do the one-time password. And then as before, you have to agree to the terms and conditions to continue. So just please go ahead and do that as well. I'm using a different browser and I'm already connected to that, but eventually you should see a screen like this. So I'm just going to wait for a second and make sure that, Sabrina and team, you're able to get to this page so that we can get started with where we left off with the labs. And please confirm verbally to me once you're connected.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. And Jardel, Sasha, Drea.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Sasha is in. Andrea, I guess, is in. All right. So that's again, you'll get to this page. This is the page you'll be able to have access to for another day and 20 hours, something like that. So you still be able to use it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this this window. We click on the link here for the AWS account access, so that we open it in a different tab. Again, it's just going to go ahead and authenticate you, authorize you, and drop you into the right region, which is Oregon. Make sure that is still the case. Let me close this. Going to close this. And remember, we're still using Canvas. Canvas is under SageMaker, so you can click on the SageMaker link, or you can always come here and search for the service. You can do directly Canvas, come here and click on it. Should get you to about the same page, okay? So again, there are so many different applications within SageMaker. The one we're interested in is Canvas, and we already have a user profile called Business Analyst. So let's go ahead and that's the only one. So just go ahead and click on Open Canvas, and a new tab will open up now, and your Canvas instance will come into play. Again, Canvas, like Bedrock, like many services that we have, is a managed service. You don't have to do anything on your own in terms of creating or provisioning the underlying infrastructure for it. this will be done directly by AWS for you. Okay. So let me pause. Andrea, Sasha, Videsh, Jardel, and everybody else, just confirm to me that you're able to get to this page.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. So we still have the navigation pane here on the left-hand side that, remember, we're doing Data Wrangler yesterday, so you can click on it. You'll still be able to see your data flow here. So you can click on it. You'll still be able to observe it. Where we left off yesterday, let me, if I zoom out, where we left off yesterday was if I go back to the instructions, we were at the evaluate the model section, right? Part. So we built our model here. This is exactly where we left off. Okay, and we're doing the model evaluation. Okay, so that is actually, if I close this, that approach here, that part is going to be here under my models. So we created model. The model was called bank model. If you named it something different, you see a different name. But we have one model, so let's go ahead and click on that model. Okay, click again on that so that we can get the view that we had yesterday. Getting some, asking for feedback. We can ignore that for now. But you should get something similar to this. So when you have models, you can have different versions. If you're going to retrain them, etc., you can have multiple versions. But we had the build section yesterday, so we're at the analyze section here, step here, I should say. And you should get a screen similar to this, right? And when you see this, you see, I think in the screenshot, let me see. The screenshot here, you see that is showing a curve going up this way. It's because the yes option is selected. So if I select yes, I should get something similar as well. The actual numbers for accuracy and F1 score, etc., may be slightly different. Because as I had explained to you yesterday, remember that we have a data set with 41,000 entries, something like that. And what we're actually doing, what Canvas is doing, is going to divide that into data set that it's going to use for training and data set that it's going to be using for validation, right? And what is used for validation and what is used for training is going to be different for you, me, and everybody else. So, but you should get something similar to these numbers. I think, yeah, here is 91%. Let me see. Yeah, an F1 score of 661.661, right? So slightly better than mine, right? But you should, again, get something similar to this in your output, okay? So again, you're looking at the instructions. Again, you have the overview section. That's what we're looking at here, right? What this here shows you is the impact of each column. So remember when we talked about AI in general, Gen AI as well is very much important. It's important to have some form of explainability and transparency. So we know also as to which feature within the set of features that we have 20 some. We trimmed out some of them, but we still have a dozen or more. Actually, yeah, exactly. We have 12 features here, which ones are impacting the model, right? So, and every time if you want to know more, there's the eye icon here that shows you a little bit more information about that. Okay, So here again, you have the distribution in terms of the duration versus the impact on prediction that is shown in a XY graph as well. Okay. So that's one aspect, one view of it. So that's the overview, right? In terms of the column impact. And then you can also look at the scoring, right? So if I go back to here, look at the scoring, you have the predicted versus actual, okay? So in this particular case, we have 8,000 something in total of all the predictions. And when we would divide, when we took the whole size of the data set, when we took parts for validation, we already knew the answer, right? Because they're part of the initial input. But we're using that just to say, okay, we created a model or a set of models, and we're going to say, is this user going to churn, for instance? And we may get an answer, but that answer may be correct, like it is here, okay? Or it may be incorrect as is shown here. So in this particular view, direct one here, we did the correct call prediction 6,753 times, and we did the incorrect one 299 times. Okay, when we thought that the answer was going to be no. Okay, and here when we thought the answer is going to be yes, we got 628 of them correct, but 557 of them as being incorrect, right? So you see that right here for yes, our accuracy is not as good as for the no, right? And part of the reason is because we have much more no answers than yes answers, right? So that again shows you how you can do this. The other thing to look at also here, Lwanga mentioned this a little bit earlier on. Part of the reason with generative AI, but in particular, but Canvas here being a low-code, no-code solution, is to make AI and ML very much accessible to people who are not experts in AI ML, right? So we're telling you what are some of the key metrics that you should really look at, okay? And they're shown here, okay? And we'll cover some of them here. So there's the F1 score, accuracy, precision, and recall and area under curve as well. Okay, so precision and recall in particular are important because this is how we calculate the F1 score. So F1 score is actually a combination between precision and recall. But let's first talk about what precision is, right? Precision is is something, I mean, it gives you an answer here or an explanation here of all the times that yes was predicted, the prediction was correct, was 53% of the time, right? So this is for yes, we're doing it for yes. We could have done it for no as well, okay? So you see that the precision for yes is much lower than no, right? Precision for no is much higher, okay? But you can look at this separately. And recall is when the model correctly predicts the right answer, which is to be no, when Y was actually no, all right? So, and these two metrics, precision and recall, are very important, and you can say which one is important to you based on the use case. So let me give you a very simple example, right? So recall, you see, is when the model predicts no in this particular case, and the actual answer is no. Okay, so it's really when you're correct on the prediction, right? So in that use case, for instance, is on recall is very important for when you want to do medical medical use cases, right? So is this X-ray or image that I have of a potential cancerous cell, cancerous or not? Is it benign or is it cancerous, right? You want to be correct on that one, right? You don't want to be to make a bad prediction on that, right? So in that particular case, for instance, precision or sorry, recall would be much more important, right? Precision is when you may have you can make a prediction, but the prediction will have some of the right answers, but it may miss some of the right answers. Okay, so it's not all the right answers. Okay? But anyways, these are in any type of machine learning and AI discussions. These are very important metrics to take into account, right? So you also have it here in a confusion matrix. So true positive, false positive, true negative, and false negative, right? So all those values are shown here. So you can see that, for instance, for yes, the false negative and true negatives are almost close to one another, right? So you can see that that's why the accuracy, if we go back here, the accuracy, or sorry, the precision for no, is not that good, right? Because it's basically this over this plus this, right? So it's something to take into account. And you can also do the precision recall curve here. So many ways to review this. So again, the lab guide has a bit more information, and you can definitely look at more information on that, right? So that's advanced matrix is what we used here. And the confusion matrix is the last one we looked at, right? All right. Any questions so far? Not just actually, I hadn't shown. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying we didn't have any questions. You can go ahead.
Okay, all right. The last thing, actually, I should have shown you this as well. I forgot to. So remember that with Canvas, what we're doing is we're building multiple models where we vary some of the parameters. So it was called hyperparameter tuning or optimization. That happens in the background. So we do that across multiple models, okay, and then we show you the models that we that were created, right? So we have, I don't know, about 10 of them, something like that were created here. And then we selected, or Canvas said, okay, this is the best performing models based on all these different metrics that are available. But you could use, if you say, oh, you know what, I prefer, for instance, an FY optimization score that is the highest, then I can select one that has the highest score, like maybe this one or this one, something like that. And for any of the other parameters as well. And this is also the calculated inference latency. So inference latency is when you ask that question. So I say, okay, I have this particular client in this particular case, right? Because it's a client information. Age is this, income is this, or whatever. We give it this and predict Y for me, right? This is what we're predicting, right? It's going to take it a little less than a second, so 800 milliseconds to make that prediction. Okay, if you want something that is the fastest, you may select, for instance, between these two, and then see which one of these two would give you a better outcome. Actually, it looks like they're exactly the same across all metrics. So you can say, you know what, I'd rather take model 6 or model 5 as my initial model, right? So you can do any of that to come up to the model that you want to use going forward, okay? All right, so now that we have covered all of that, including the model leader, what we want to do is we're going to do some predictions, right? So we're going to select to predict, and then we choose the predict tab, and then we're going to do the prediction as a single prediction or a batch prediction where we give it a lot of input, right? So let's do that. So the predict button is here. So we can click on that. Can do batch prediction or single prediction, right? So we can select, remember that the default is a batch prediction, just select the single prediction. And then, we can, we have all these different columns or features that we have in place, right? Let me just double check in the instructions if they give us something else. And we can just take the input as is and do the prediction, right? So in this particular case, and for this particular one, we have a no prediction at 99.975 and a y at this level, right? So this one is pretty much a no in terms of the estimated prediction, right? But we can vary some of these as well, and then if you want, you can kind of play with some of them just to see what what the outcome is going to be. This is just to test with a couple of use cases, right? So again, remember duration was the highest impact or the most impactful, right? So I'm just going to change the duration and see if there's any type of impact. But anyways, you can test with a few of them. Actually, I increased duration. I should have decreased it to see if yes gets a little bit higher prediction here. But again, you can play with that a little bit just to see what type of outcome you get for the type of the values of each feature that we select, okay? All right, so now that we've done the single prediction, we can also download some files so that we can do some inference in a batch mode, right? So you can, again, do it in real time with the inference latency as we discussed earlier on, or you can do some manual, some batch evaluation when you may have, thousands of users, data that is already saved in a CSV file, uploaded, and then get the outcome for all of that. So go ahead and download the inference data set, and then we'll be able to do the batch prediction as well from the console. Yeah. So once you've uploaded, download that, you can say, I'm gonna do. I'm sorry. Let me. Back to prediction. Oops, sorry. So let me see. We're gonna upload that. So we're just gonna upload it. Batch. So I'm gonna say my batch data set create, and I'm gonna upload it. So that's the inference.csv file. Okay, and it's ready here. And I can data set. I create the data set. Once that's uploaded, I'm gonna do, here it is. And I have 1200 data set cells. It's 100 rows, right? So yes, we have 12 columns per row. So it's gonna be that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create or generate the prediction so that we can use that input file and generate some predictions. Okay. Everybody good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So once we're done with that, we can do view that. And we have the 100 or so of them listed here. And for, again, most of them it's no. I get a couple of, I have a yes, but you see the probability is pretty low. It's just 51%. Let me know if you get something vastly different. You should really get quite a bit of no. Actually, all except for one being no. Do you get something different? Our models should be
No, I didn't.
pretty similar. Okay. Okay. So our prediction for y is shown here, and the probability is here. So those are the two main inputs, and then all the other columns are the input columns, right? So if we were to open that particular file, right? There we go. So this is our input file, right? And this is, based on that, we get the output. Actually, this is interesting. Age is shown as, okay. Actually, I hadn't noticed this before, but age seems to be off. So again, this is something that maybe in our data quality checks, we should be able to verify and validate, just to make sure we're not doing something that is incorrect. So in the end, you can download this as well. Let me just download it for sake of completeness, or you can just close this window and move on. Okay. So that was the manual prediction for single or batch. And then the next thing we're going to do is say, okay, we're going to take this and deploy it to production, right? So let's go ahead and do that. That's the last step in our multi-step approach, right? So go ahead and deploy it. I'm going to create a deployment. Okay, and do we name it, or we just take the default one? Let me see. Yeah, you can name it if you want. I'll just call it, yeah, just like they do in the example. Canvas new deployment. Let me call it prod just to make it sound official. So when you want to do create an endpoint, okay, which is what we're gonna do here, you're gonna select the version of the model that you want. We only have one version, that's fine. So this is really for real-time inference or the real-time prediction, right? And then under the hood is still gonna create some compute infrastructure for us to to have access to this inference, and depending on how many inferences we expect on a per second basis, we can size and we can select whichever one makes the most amount of sense. In this particular case, okay, they tell us to use M5 to X large. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Again, these are the size of the compute resources that we can use, okay, and the instance count. So you usually would want more than one for high availability purposes. And I think in our case, we just need one. This is yeah, count is one is fine, right? And go ahead and generate this or deploy this endpoint, okay? So this take a little bit of time, but right here, we already have the URL that we're gonna use to do the inference, okay? And this is being created or provisioned behind the scenes for us by Canvas, okay? But again, just to walk you through this, we loaded our raw data. We did some data preparation work. We did build the model. We adjusted things that we wanted to adjust. We did some analysis. We did some prediction just to test it out manually, right? And now we're deploying it once we're happy with all of this. So all this is done end to end through Canvas, where you don't have to be like an AI/ML expert, just know enough about, especially the most important thing is what answer you want to get out of this, right? And then based on that, you'd be able to select the things that are important to you, be able to get the explainability from the data set, and then finish off the deployment with the real-time endpoint here, okay? So any questions so far?
No, good so far.
Lwanga, anything you wanted to add in this?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, not from my side.
Okay, thanks. All right. So again, the important here is that you have an endpoint that is going to be used with this particular model, right? But if I mean, this is still being created, so it's not ready. But if I copy this, paste it here, and try to access it, it's not known yet, right? So this is not going to work. But even if this is fully deployed, this will still not work, right? Because again, that endpoint requires authentication, right? You don't want, you wouldn't want anybody to use it, so you still have to provide credentials and things like that. So that's why in this particular case, we create this, but we don't really go ahead and test it. Okay. So yeah, we're just going to leave this here and let it run its course. But in the meantime, you can also again look at other ways of doing this, where you can open whatever canvas in the background is generating. You can get that into what we call a notebook, and be able to have access to the actual code, so that you can, do some modifications if you want to, etc. Right? So those are capabilities that are available within Canvas as well. Okay. All right. So let's switch gears. Let's we we can do. I think we should do this one versus some of the other ones here. You have other lab use cases. Again, the approach is still going to be the same, right? You can do any of these, and as I mentioned earlier on, we're always working backwards from what you want to accomplish, right? So if you know what problem you're trying to solve, you're, let's say, halfway there already, right? That's very, very important, because once you know the questions you want to ask, or what answers you need, then you can say what data you need for that, and then use this low code, no code solution using Amazon Canvas to generate the end-to-end flow for you. Okay, but that even as if that was not easy enough, now we have the capability of using generative AI to help us generate AI. Right? So let's go ahead and do this one real quick, to see, and probably not going to do some of the steps here, but let's go ahead and get started with this. Okay, so again, more information on generative AI, cover some of that in the slides, but can highly encourage you to go through this and read part of it as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is, within Canvas itself, okay, see, now this is in service. So just one last thing before we move on, I'm going to recopy this URL, get to it. I'm still getting this error. It's normal because I'm not authenticated. So to do this, I would have to use some SDK, or a Postman, something like that, to exercise this or have access to this URL with our credentials for that. Okay. So now, again, back to the generative AI chat aspect of it. Okay, so within Canvas now, within Canvas, we have a Gen AI section. Okay, that again can give you access to different things, right? So you can access foundation models powered by Bedrock. You can query documents using Kendra. You can fine tune the foundation models, right? So this one is something that takes a little bit more time. So I'm gonna skip this. I'm just gonna look at some of the other things that we can do here, right? All right, so we can get started with the Bedrock foundational models. You see that, remember I was telling you that we have different models that we can use here, that we can select. So this is within Bedrock, but wait, there is more, right? Within SageMaker itself, we have something called Jumpstart that has even more models that are available to us. Some of these models are not even available within Bedrock, right? So for instance, some models that are from Databricks or Google AI, etc. Right? So, and this also is a subset of what is available in Bedrock, right? So if you use Bedrock directly without using Canvas, you'd have even more models available to you. Okay, All right, so let's see in the guide, we select a particular one. And we can compare. So in this case, they're using Claude 2 and Llama 2, right? And asking it a simple question as what is Amazon SageMaker Canvas, right? So let's say I'm going to select Claude 2, okay? And I can compare also to which one was it that we're using here? Llama 2, 7 billion parameters. Okay? Here we go. Okay, actually, we didn't have, okay, this one may not be available anymore. So it doesn't matter. We can take any of the other ones. Let's say, let's take Jurassic 2, right? And the question is, what is Amazon SageMaker Canvas? Right? Oh, I didn't do compare. My apologies. Right? But essentially, you can get the answer there from this one model. But as it says here, we're going to compare two. So we're going to do, let's do Claude 2 and Titan. It doesn't matter. What is Amazon SageMaker Canvas? So you see that it started generating, this is streaming, right? So it's just generating answers as it's generating it, it's printing it to the screen. So again, you can see that Claude 2 is more verbose, has more information, presents some of the data in bulleted form. Titan is a little bit more compact, right? And again, you can read through that and compare and see which one makes a little bit more sense. But essentially, this you can do directly within Bedrock, but this also allows you to do it within Canvas as well. Okay. And you can do some additional formatting related queries, etc. All right. Then the interesting thing is that we can use generative AI for certain use cases within Canvas, right? So if we want to do, for instance, give it some information as to what the conversation between a customer and a support agent has been, and then we can do some provide us some instructions, etc., to give us some additional answers, right? So in this particular case, we're going to take just a single model. It's going to be Claude Instant. Okay. So let's copy this input information. Okay. Actually, instead of copying that, let's copy this. So you see, this is real good prompt engineering, right? So we're telling it, here's a conversation between an AWS support engineer and an AWS customer. You understand the conversation generated by context. So we're telling it, okay, here's the context, right? Tags, and you provide answers based on this context, okay? So we're telling it, here's my content within the context tags. What I want you to do is summarize this, and we're giving it additional context by saying this is a support and customer conversation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a new chat. We're gonna do, actually Claude Instant is not available, so it doesn't matter. We're just gonna use Claude 2, and let's ask the question, right? So, oops. Okay, I think this one. Plot 2. Hold on. Let me. Oh, Claude is available. My apologies. Apologies. Actually, this one may have changed. Yeah, I mean, this, within Bedrock itself, if I open a new window and I use just Bedrock, okay, so instead of doing it within Canvas, not sure, I hadn't experienced this problem before. If I go to just Bedrock, you have access to Bedrock. Remember yesterday we did model access, and we granted access to pretty much all the models except some of that were not available. So we have access to the models. So we can go and get to base models, okay, and then we can select any of these. Actually, let's go ahead and select one of the more recent ones if you want. You can do Sonnet, or actually let's do Sonnet, or let's do Sonnet, okay? Claude 3 Sonnet, okay? Gonna select that model, okay? And let's open it in a playground, okay? And then here we can put the prompt, and we can run it. Then we'll get the answer. All right, so let me close some of these so that we'll have a little bit more real estate. But essentially, we're getting some information on, or we're getting the answer from using this particular model, the Claude 3 Sonnet. Okay, so the overall customer sentiment is positive, enthusiastic throughout the conversation. Some key indicators of positive sentiments are this, that, and that, right? So in our particular instructions, we didn't tell it to just give a short answer, a long answer, etc. So it's giving us quite a bit of information in terms of the context as well, saying this is why I think it's positive and enthusiastic. Okay. And it's even creating some codes related to that. So that's essentially, some of the things that you can do directly within even the Bedrock playground to get answers based on that instruction that we had in this guide. Okay. All right. So again, my apologies. This part within Canvas Gen AI didn't work, but you were able to still do it within Bedrock. All of you were able to get to Bedrock and use it that way, the way I showed it.
Kind of.
Okay, so tell me the kind of part. I can walk you through this once more if maybe I did it a little too fast. Was that it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, no problem. No, please don't be shy. No, so the first thing is, you want to go to the Bedrock page. So for that, you just type Bedrock to do a search, get to Bedrock directly. If the side panel is closed, you can just click on this, and then you have a bunch of things that you can use here. You can use different things. You can use, but I'm just selecting a base model here. Okay. So if I click on base models, I'm just going to turn off these pop-ups. And here I have a list of all the models, the base models. We good so far, first of all?
Yeah, actually found out where I got lost.
Okay, no problem. All right, so here is all the models that are available right now in our accounts. So in my particular account, I have these ones. If they're not grayed out, they're available. So you see that some of them are grayed out, like this one, for instance, Claude 3 Opus, I don't have access to. Because again, this is a very fast-moving area of technology. Some of these models are being surpassed or supplanted by others, right? So Claude 2.1 is available here. Claude 2 is available. Some of the Claude instant may not be available here. We can check that, but it doesn't matter for what we're trying to do. You can use Claude 3 Haiku or Claude 3 Sonnet because we have access to both. Or so in my case, I use Sonnet. So just click on Sonnet, then you have to scroll back up, and then you can say open in Playground. Yeah, you got that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So once you do that, again, there are certain things that you can tune here. We don't go too much into that. We can add additional system prompts as well. Again, this is part of more, let's say, advanced prompt engineering part. Our stuff is rather simple. We can put it all in the user prompt, okay? And we can just paste it here. So this is the part that comes from here, right? So this part, so you can copy it here with this button, okay? And again, this is showing that that is done in Canvas, but we can do it directly in Bedrock as well because of the character limits that we encountered here. So we can say, okay, summarize this and provide information about the sentiment of the customer, and just click on Run. Good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you click that, it's just, again, going to give you the answers or its analysis. Okay, so then just to make it a little bit bigger, I can go ahead and can't copy that, but just going to say expresses excitement and eagerness to try out generative AI capabilities on SageMaker Canvas for building applications, etc., right? And the customer sentiment is throughout the conversation, the customer expresses a positive, enthusiastic sentiment, etc. So do you get something similar as an output? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get the output, the similar output?
Yeah, no, got it.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so again, this is more of the playground, but you can use this to ask it other questions also and get the answers that that the model will generate for you, right? So in this particular case, again, we're giving it the transcript of a conversation, and we're telling it analyze the sentiment. Okay, so that's what it's doing, and we can be a little bit more precise and say, summarize in just as positive or negative if you want. If you're not interested in the details, you can even tell it. Just tell me if it's positive, negative, or neutral, or something like that, and then it will give that answer to you. Okay. So again, very similar to what we've seen here. Okay. And you can compare different models from and so again within Bedrock itself, you can do that. You can do compare mode. So we have Claude 3 Sonnet, and I can, let's say, use Llama. Let's do, I'm randomly picking, right? And I have access to that, so that's good. Okay, so this image is, again, it's telling you some of the things that are happening with some of these models. This one doesn't support images, so in our case, we don't have images, so go ahead and we don't have images, so we're good to go. So this is, again, one way where you can say, okay, I have different models. How do I compare it? As I was telling you earlier on, there's one way to do it, right? Yeah, there's overwhelmingly positive. They express excitement and enthusiasm about using Canvas, etc., etc. Right? So, so again, there's a way of making sure that you can pick the model that is appropriate for you. And you also get metrics. I didn't mention this earlier on about the different models. So you can also define metrics where you set a threshold and say, okay, for instance, I don't want output tokens to be less than or greater than 100. I'm making it up, right? I don't want the cost to be greater than 9. I'm just making these up, right? But you can set these, and then based on that, it will tell you which one will perform better. Or you can just look at the metrics that it collected here, right? So, for instance, Claude 3 seems to be much faster. Took 3.8 seconds versus 10 seconds here. The input tokens, roughly the same. Output tokens, roughly the same. Meta seems to be a little bit better at this than, or Llama 3.1 seems to be better than Claude 3 Sonnet, right? But again, you have this type of metrics that you can use to help you define the selection criteria, and then select the model that is best performing based on the test criteria that you have put together. So this is the manual way. You can also upload a set of criteria and input data that Bedrock will evaluate for you and give you the score and help you decide as to which model would be more appropriate for you. Okay. Yeah, we're good with that.
Yeah.
Perfect. And you can also do some query documents. So let's try that here. Let me delete this so that we don't have this. Let's see if we have this index. Okay, so I'm just gonna check real quick in Kendra if we have an index. That should have been created by the lab, but Kendra is a managed search engine indexer that can be used. Yes, so we have it here. So this should be okay. That can be used as a source of existing documents, right? So in this particular case, that's what we're using. It's not the only way to do it. There are many other ways to do it as well.
I don't know if you just made Tamrat, but I'm not seeing your screen.
Oh, Everybody not see my screen? Let me restart
Oh,
it anyways.
I don't know if it's just me, but I don't see it.
Okay. There we go. I just restarted it. You see it now?
No.
Is it not?
yeah, I am seeing.
You see it? Okay, so it's just me then. Let me restart. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. No problem. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, so if so in this particular case, we're using Kendra, but there are other even more recent options that don't require you to have Kendra, right? So we can look at that some other times when we talk about other services apart from Bedrock as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and so this is the question that would be able to be answered based on data that exists in documents, right? So in this particular case, if I come here and I'm doing query documents, okay, and I asked this exact question, I should get an output that will tap into the data source that is within Kendra. Okay, so not only it gives me an answer, right? And this is again in natural language, something that we can read and all, but also tells me what is the source of that answer, right? So it's this particular document, it's clickable, right? So I can go ahead and click on it and be able to see the actual document. See, is it? This is, is a PDF document. It's not well formatted, meaning it has two columns. Some are tables, some are diagrams. Okay. So depending on the model that you use, it could be what we call multimodal, meaning it doesn't only understand text, it can also understand graphs and images and other things that are within documents. Okay. So, and it highlights the area. So if I zoom in, it highlights the area that where it really got the relevant information from. Okay. Okay. So imagine, you have to go and replace a failing part in a machine and in industrial site and things like that. You can ask just your question in the way that was asked here. Sorry, here. What do I do if my L series type C double octane actuator is leaking, right? Or actually, this is the problem, right? And it will tell you the answer based on documents that you already have that are related to that product. Actually, that could be across all your products, but it will just select the part that are most relevant and present the data to you. Okay. So, and if you go to other documents, similar things, it will just again show you the parts that are most relevant. So the install, operate, maintain guide, etc. Right. So that makes sense. This is, by the way, this is retrieval augmented generation. Right? So these are documents that are pertinent just to your organization. Okay? So you stored it in Kendra here in Kendra, which is an indexer that you could use that where you can store all of your data. It will just like it would be done on like in Google, for instance. You not only get the data, but you index it and then make it available for searching. Okay, so there are 41 different documents in this particular repository in our case. Okay, and You can also, again, do some additional queries like these across different models as well. So you can, again, do so many different types of queries based on the documents that are in Kendra. Now, let me just quickly go back here, because I think I may know why this particular problem that I had seen may have happened. So I'm just going to come here, say in Canvas, I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to query. And yeah, okay, that was it. So when you do query documents, there is a character limit. So I had noticed that I had actually turned on query documents here. My apologies. So if I turn that off, you get the answer. So this is output based on just using the model. If I turn this on, it will default to this particular index, right? So it's not going to go and generate information based on what the model has been trained on. So it may be on stuff that is available on the internet, but it's going to focus specifically on documents that are just in this repository. Okay, so when this is the case, the prompt cannot be more than 1,000 characters, something like that. So we also know the source of the problem, and my apologies for not catching that earlier on. Okay, so again, this is the just quick introduction of what is available within Canvas for Gen AI using the Gen AI tab here, or the Gen AI section within Canvas. As I showed you, because we took a little bit of a detour, within Bedrock, you have even more stuff available. And because this is very fast moving, if we come back to Canvas a month from now, the amount of models that will be available will probably be higher and more based on the latest models that are available within Bedrock. Okay. Any questions on that?
No.
No? Okay. So maybe I'll just take a couple more minutes before we close, just to cover some of these. Again, these labs are available for you for another day and a half, something like that. So if you want to execute some of them, you're more than welcome to do it. But look at the agenda. This is exactly what we did in the first lab, right? You have the data set, you build the model. When you build the model, you need the data set. You may do some cleaning, you may be some selection, you may be doing some correction of the data, cleaning of the data, etc. But once you're done with those things, you can go ahead and let Canvas generate the different models and select the model that would take them that would make the most sense for your particular use case. You can use single or batch prediction, and then you can deploy the model, or you can view it in a notebook. So all these are based on particular use cases. So this is more customer churn. This is a telco, a mobile phone provider example. This is housing prices. This is demand forecasting, etc. Right? So different industries, different use cases, but the flow remains the same. You need the data. You use something like Data Wrangler to do the data preparation, and all of that is to get the answers that you want to get out of your data. Okay. So let me pause here. Let me see if you have any questions and any thoughts before we close. Lwanga, Rishi, please, and Naresh as well, and Sabrina, feel free to jump in as well. Anything
Just
else?
nothing new, just some of the examples that I was referring to. I can't attach anything in the chat, so Tamrat, if you could send it over to this audience later, or you and
Of
Rishi.
course,
I know you don't see your
via
screen.
email. Yeah.
Yeah, so I send
Yeah.
those as a PDF, so teams can review. Okay, that's
Okay.
it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And all right. Sabrina or Naresh, any last thoughts?
No,
Okay.
I'd just
Well,
like to thank you for being here though, for the 2 days. It's very informative.
no problem. No, very happy to do it. And there's more to come. I think we're just scratching the surface, but I think it's important to make it
I'll let
as
Sabrina go first. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll let Sabrina. You go ahead first.
Sorry.
I guess Sabrina, any other thoughts on your side?
Well, I look forward to working with you for this semester and the next semester.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll
And
be
Naresh, you're gonna say
yes.
something? Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Tamrat. This is wonderful. I mean, Sabrina and the rest of UX and the members. This is actually a very nice workshop. It gives you a lot of hands-on into using the generative AI and all the different models. Is really really impressive. Uh, and Sabrina, yeah, just push this out and advertise it to the rest of your on my camera here. Yeah, just get this out to your rest of your membership, because this is a wonderful demonstration. A quick question, Tamrat, is it
Yeah.
after the 20 days is 20 hours is up in terms of the access to the system, can you re-register, or is this a one-off?
It's a one-off. Unfortunately, we have a maximum of time, which is 72 hours. I put it for 72 hours, and that's really when that expires, there's no way for us to extend it further. But what I'll say